Well, I tell you, fellas, the next president will be a Republican.
A Republican? Well, do tell. I never knew there was anything except Democrats.
You look fantastic. You don't change. I don't know what you do, but whatever it is, keep doing it because it must be working for you.
It's called running for office when you thought you were never going to run for office again. I got away from the bubble of Sacramento, came home a normal person, did things, family, worked in the community, and then here it is. But something about getting away from Sacramento is really, everybody should try it once in a while.
You should try it once in a while. Well, that's where I am. I live in that area, but you and I have something in common. You're from Barstow. I'm from Bakersfield, actually a little town called Fairfax, south of Bakersfield. That's where I grew up. So we got that in common. And you grew up po-folk, just like I did, and worked your way up, got a great education, you accomplished amazing things, got into politics after a career of teaching, successful one with universities, and running programs. And what made you decide? And you were flaming lefty. I remember you were the trifecta to me when I was first starting to get involved. I've always been in the media, but I was an on-air, fun morning show radio guy. I didn't care. I didn't talk much about politics, didn't follow it, but I did know you. It was you and Barbara Boxer and Dianne Feinstein. As far as I was concerned, you were the trifecta of leftist weirdness. That was you. You were right in the middle of all that as senator. Why did you decide to jump into the political arena?
And it's interesting. First of all, I do take it as a compliment to be clustered with those two. But if you stop and think about it, I left Sacramento in 2010. And back then, I mean, if I were in Sacramento today with my views that I held in 2010 when I left, I would be considered a staunch conservative, right-wing, blah, blah, blah. So it just shows how far the Democrat Party has not only shifted, just fallen off the cliff completely. So it's kind of interesting just to see the changes there.
We conservatives are real wary of somebody who was a Democrat and then they become a Republican. We wonder, are you grandstanding? Are you jumping ship because you just want to get elected and where the winning votes are right now or where the mood is shifted and changed? I don't think that that's you. I don't believe that that's you because you were doing things when you were in the Senate. Like, for example, tell us about the parent trigger.
Right.
You pushed this through.
And I appreciate it because, I get asked this question a lot. So I appreciate you raising the issue. When I went to the legislature, I walked in a Democrat from East Los Angeles believing in school choice. Now, it's interesting because we hear a lot about school choice today and people don't think too much about it. But when I was in the legislature in a Democrat majority caucus, legislature, this was almost like, oh my God, how can you be school choice? So I was one of an early pioneers to say parents should be the architects of their kids' educational futures. And our schools are failing us. They're not even underperforming, they're failing. And we shouldn't trap kids in failing schools. Let the parents choose. So the parent trigger law I wrote, I remember at that time, we had already recalled Gray Davis and Arnold Schwarzenegger was now the governor. And that to me shows, and it really should illustrate for everybody how important having mixed government is. Like no one party should ever dominate all three houses. The executive and the branches of the legislature, because by having a Republican governor in office, it meant that I could move a bill like the parent trigger bill that I knew was going to be controversial. A status quo interest would not want to see it, but I could move it through And I was able to work with all the Republicans in the Assembly and the Senate in order to gather up all the votes, because Republicans believe in school choice. And so I was able to get all of their votes. And then I just had to go and get a handful of Democrat votes to say, will you please, go ahead and give a vote here so that we can allow mostly, low-income kids a chance to escape from a failing school, a school that the state of California identified as failing. So the parent trigger law basically was one that said, here's the list of the schools that are underperforming. I call them failing. And if you're in one of these schools, you have the right to do a number of things to turn it around, including converting it to a charter school. And that's subsequent, what many parents in California who used the law actually did. But that was considered revolutionary.
There's a whole lot that started doing that. That was fantastic. That was you.
Right.
And that's why I know you're not afraid to stand up for what's right, regardless of party, because you stood up against the most powerful union in the nation. People think Teamsters, people think auto workers, people think whatever as being powerful and bullies. It's the CTA, which is a nice, sweet little name for the Teachers Union of California, the California Teachers Association. They turned on you like vicious rodents when you started supporting this, didn't they?
Absolutely. And not only the school choice, again, to looking at a lot of these opportunities, but also pushing for tenure reform, for putting in meritocracy, that we should have some form of merit pay to take a look at student outcomes. In other words, some portion of a teacher's contract and their rehiring shouldn't just be, do they show up and breathe on any particular day of the week, but we should be, but like in most professions, show us your records. And is this meritorious of a promotion, of retention? Do we keep you? Do we do anything else? And it was something that I believed in and supported. And the Democrats would not go for that because it was led by the teachers union, who just said, nope, can't have that.
No, they're scary as hell, actually.
Right. Some other things.
How bad did it get for you?
Yeah.
How bad did it get?
Oh, it got it was very intense. And of course, later on, the unions basically came and just said they spent millions of dollars against me. I mean, imagine that, for standing up for parents, that a union, and even still, if you think about it, even the Parent Teacher Association, I know it means well, but the PTA, there's more T in that than P, because typically the PTA representatives would come up and sit side by side by the teachers union and just say, like, me too, me too. So there really was no independent parent organization. We've seen a lot since, and it's exciting to see the rise of the parent movement. It's a lot stronger now. There are a lot more choices, including homeschooling, which is fabulous, but we have so much more that we have to do.
Amen. Amen. So, Lieutenant Governor, why that? What brought that about, especially after you had retired? You termed out, and then you're like, forget it. I did some good work. I'm going to go be a normal person now, because Sacramento is a cesspool, for heaven's sake. It's really bad. It's really bad.
I kept working in the field of education reform, helping parents start charter schools. I started a couple of networks on my own. I also took up the reforms of Proposition 209. Well, rather that, remember, there was an effort to try to undermine Proposition 209. And for your viewers, remember, Prop 209 is what the voters of California overwhelmingly voted for. And it basically says, don't judge somebody on the color of their skin. Judge us on the content of our character, so that we shouldn't have race in admissions to schools, employment, or contracting with state government. So there was an effort some years ago to try to undermine it. And remember, back then I was a Democrat still. I joined a coalition. Ward Connerly was in that coalition, basically standing up and saying, we believe in the dream of Martin Luther King. don't make it race-based. So we did all of that. Later on, when I saw the recall against Governor Newsom, I joined that. And I actually supported Larry Elder because I believe, Larry and I might not have agreed on some environmental issues or other stuff, but on school choice, on the importance of fathers in kids' homes, I stood with him, and I believe that it was a time of critical change in California, and we needed to do something very different in order to turn California around, especially on schools. So you can see that over the years, I continued to, park the party label. I was a Democrat. I was still fighting for reform in the party, but I would readily endorse the candidate who I thought was best. And that would often mean Republican candidates. In fact, if I can tell you, it was really very funny because at one point, I was working with an organization called Democrats for Education Reform, meaning basically turning around failing schools and all of these charter schools. And I actually got a letter from the chair of the LA County Democratic Party. It was a cease and desist letter. It was sent to me and the organization telling us that we could not call ourselves Democrat. And it tells you how authoritarian the party had already become. And basically, I just threw it away saying, you know what, I will decide. This is America. People will decide what label they want to call themselves. We have the freedom to vote how we will, to do the right thing for the nation rather than for the party. And to have this guy tell me, ordering me that you cannot call yourself, you cannot belong to a party from which I was once the majority leader. But that's how bad it was getting, and it's even worse now.
This is going to seem kind of like a weird way to come at this, but I smoked for over 20 years. And once I quit, I see other people smoking now, and I think, oh, glad I don't do that anymore. When you see what the Democrats are doing in California, do you think, oh, I'm glad I'm not in that anymore?
Well, it was a whole progress. It was walking away. And actually in my family, my parents were hardcore Democrats, Depression era Democrats. Think about my household, really a traditional Mexican-American household, the middle of the desert. My father worked the railroads.
And Barstow, she's not kidding when she says the middle of the desert. She's not kidding.
And so, basically it's the Pope, and it was John F. Kennedy, and then it was Robert Kennedy Jr. But if you stop and you think about it, our generation was really one where it was American exceptionalism. We believed in America. We believed in the American worker. We went to the moon. Our generation was one where we were told, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. It was pick up yourself by your boots, work hard and study. And so that's really was the Democrat Party that I grew up in. And after a while, as we saw, it really went the other way. So I looked at it, and by the time I left, I had seen essentially this Democrat Party couldn't define what a woman is. Wouldn't call us mothers. We're supposed to be birthing.
You're a birthing person.
Exactly. Trying to take away our gas stoves. And I think, oh my God, for any Latino family, you cannot toast a tortilla in a microwave. So don't take away my gas stove.
Doesn't work as good on an electric griddle either.
Exactly.
It's got to be flame. Yes.
Yeah, I'm like Charlton Heston holding on to my stove, saying, over my dead body, will you take my gas stove? Go to Pollo Loco. If you go to Pollo Loco or something, are you going to say, oh, gee, this chicken is really, really charbroiled in a microwave? And of course, everybody has a microwave, but you get the point. It was a nanny state, and it was allegedly in the name of climate change.
Don't say was. Don't say was. It's worse than ever.
Yeah, exactly. So those were a lot of things.
It's still happening.
Exactly. But where it really, really got horrendous. So, I was walking away, I was looking, and in the meantime, I was being inspired by what I saw, the action within the Republican Party. Because I'll be honest, if this were a George Bush or a Mitt Romney, I probably would not have changed yet to become Republican, but I was inspired by Donald Trump. And I don't like all of his stuff, of course, but I was inspired. America first, the American worker, a secure border, believed in school choice, believed in parent rights. I mean, there's so much, again, to not starting foreign intervention. And people ask me about Iran today. And I do think, though, that with the current situation, it's ending 47 years of
That's
war.
exactly right. He didn't start a war. He's ending it.
Exactly.
He's
So there was a
ending it.
lot there, but I am so glad. And, I look at it where you find the Democrats having heart failure because the president is building a ballroom. And I think, oh my God, just chill out and go dance. It's unbelievable. It is an anger. I mean, the anger is so intense. The TDS is real. And I'm just like so much happier now that I'm in the party where it's the sunny side of politics now.
The running for lieutenant governor, I don't know, what kind of influence you would have on this, because it's basically considered just a show up and look nice and don't embarrass the governor kind of thing. And same with vice president, until you actually have a good leader who delegates, like President Trump is doing with J.D. Vance. Vice President Vance is doing amazing work, extraordinary work. You could do the same, but most governors don't want to share that credit, so they don't really utilize their lieutenant governors. But this whole thing with Rob Bonta and Mia Bonta, his wife, writing that legislation, AB 2624, trying to shut up and shut down journalists like me, with fines, possible jail time, open yourself up to lawsuits for those that are committing the fraud that you're going after. It is insane. And it's gone through the assembly. It's now in the Senate. What's going to happen, do you think?
Well, we'll see what Gavin's going to do, but he's wanting to run for president. He's crazier every day. But on the lieutenant governor, I think overall you're right. And I think it's because most people, I would give an exception to a past lieutenant governor, Mike Kerb, who was a Republican, who actually challenged and did things strongly. But I think, too, that the lieutenant governor, nobody knows who it is. Nobody knows what they've done, because they basically sit there just waiting to see, is the governor alive today? Because if not, then you will become the governor.
You're it. Yeah,
exactly. But I think it's misreading the lieutenant governor, because let me give you a few examples. The lieutenant governor serves on every board of higher education in California. So the UC Regents, for example, where we're having a big fight over Title IX, boys in girls sports. As lieutenant governor, I would be standing up right there and making sure that, no, we honor girls. I mean, you have to look at biology and protecting sports. Even right now, there's a big discussion about whether or not to have the SAT. We saw UC San Diego reveal just a couple of weeks ago that 1 out of 8 of its incoming students, they can't do math at basic levels of proficiency. So I believe in meritocracy, and really raising the standards. You can't socially promote kids. It does nothing for the children being promoted, because they get into college, they can't do math. And so this is an area where I can be a very powerful voice on the UC Regents, the trustees, and that's almost half the state budget when you think about education. Then the other big area as well, too, is the Coastal Commission. And we saw between the governor and the mayor of Los Angeles together, they burned down half the state of California because of some very broken, woke, not even science-based fire management policies. They just said, let it burn. As somebody serving on these commissions, I am going to show up, first of all, speak up, lead, demand, and make it public, so that there's a lot more to the lieutenant governor's seat that just hasn't been tapped into. But if you get a leader, if you get somebody who's unafraid like me, oh yeah, you're going to hear about the lieutenant governor and what we can do. There's a lot more power if you choose to use it.
I'm a Christian follower of Christ Jesus, and I ask any candidate that I interview, I think, because I vote along biblical principles too. I know that Steve Hilton has done something that's pretty unprecedented. He has chosen you to be his running mate. him governor, you lieutenant governor. Of course, you won't be elected together, though, like the presidential and vice presidential team would. It's you vote for these offices separately in California, but you're still running together. That hasn't really happened here, I don't think, ever before. I don't know, but maybe it has. But I have to ask about two things that are very concerning to me. One is traditional marriage. The other one is life, sanctity of life. And I've heard interviews with Steve Hilton being interviewed about especially the life issue, and he's been very on the fence over it. But where do you stand on that? I hate to put you on the spot because I like you, but and I'm glad. Welcome to the Republican Party. I'm glad you're here. But I have to ask that. It's important to me. It's important to my heart.
Yeah. Well, I'm always going to start off by saying I am pro-life. I believe again to Catholic. I'm Christian as well. I believe in life, but I am going to say that I do support the Supreme Court decision. That's the Dobbs decision. And that is where the Supreme Court came down and said, look, it's up to the states. It's up to each state in the nation to make a decision. California has voted. And so there is a pro-choice, pro-abortion to make reproductive rights, to make it accessible. So I will support that. I don't think it's the right thing to do to take it away. I don't think it would pass at this point. And rather, what I would do instead, and I've spoken with Steve about this as well, is rather than trying to relitigate right now, I think we have to step up and make it so that people will choose to want to maintain life. Part of it's education. Part of it is providing for easier adoption, surrendering a baby, giving support. I think that we have to do that more so. That's why
How about actually going after it legally and law enforcement wise, these people who are tearing down these pregnancy centers, which all they're doing is letting women actually hear the heartbeat through an ultrasound. And then they choose whether they want to still go ahead and terminate that pregnancy. And 90+% of the malaria elders big on this too, as am I. And they choose not to, and they keep that life alive. And that's awesome. But yet they have been targeted. They've been gone after. Their centers have been blown up, burned up, everything they can to shut them down, and to cities and towns and counties trying to get them out. It's crazy. And nobody talks about it.
I agree with you on that. And also, again, too, somebody should not be arrested and put away because you're praying outside. The other thing, too, again, like something like Planned Parenthood, for example, I don't believe that we should be funding Planned Parenthood. There is plenty of support. It can be a nonprofit to raise money, but also to anything that's there then under the law in California, then I would say then provide the options available so people can decide a sonogram, hear the heartbeat, make some decisions, et cetera, and get the responsibility of men as well into this. That's why I think fathers, we've got to be much more important in bringing it up. I think also too, we've got to take a look at the culture as well. What do we see in our movies? What do we see in some of the songs that people hear? And I'm not calling for censorship or boycotting, but I think we have to as well. I think we have to be responsible in raising our children and really having us think through, the culture wars and what they're being exposed to. I think also on abortion, for example, in Florida under Governor DeSantis, he signed an abortion bill, and I believe it's 6 weeks. They call it the heartbeat bill. So I think his measure is at 6 weeks. California right now, it's basically, and it's hard to pin anybody down on this, but it's essentially infanticide. And that is wrong. That is, that I believe is murder. You cannot have something like that. And that's something where I don't think abortion at this point or in the near future is going to go away in California. But I think we can look at under what circumstances can we do it. And to go to the month of pregnancy is unbelievable. So I think and I think most even Democrats would support that too, saying they might believe in choice. They might believe in looking at maybe a first trimester, but not up until 9 months of pregnancy. That's crazy.
Buffy Wicks literally was trying to push this through to where you could terminate a child's life after it's born and no
Right.
questions can be asked. In fact, you can sue the law enforcement or the officer or the agency that says, well, this is suspicious. How did this child die again? You couldn't even do that. And that the fact that that was ever even being entertained and a possibility, and it did pass, by the way, but they took out a lot of that stuff. But and then Prop 1 goes out a couple of years ago now, or overwhelmingly voted yes on Prop 1, which made abortion, added that to our state constitution, amended our state constitution to where like no one could ever take that away.
And that's why I get to, I mean, it shows where California is. So right now, I think we can continue in this battle to, keep fighting over abortion. I just think at this point, let's take a look, do what we can to promote families, help young people so that we don't get into a difficult situation to begin with. But I think we've got to really focus on the number one issues that I hear up and down the state. And it's basically the economy, it's jobs, it's affordability, violence, homelessness. So I think that's where we as Republicans can do so much more in saying, let's focus on the issues that we believe most Californians are looking at. And those are really the major issues that I hear up and down the state of California.
Traditional marriage, you didn't address that, just real quick.
I do support gay rights. So that is something where I still continue with that. I know many family and friends and colleagues and relatives. And to me, again, and this may not be a popular position, but again, there's the court decision, it's there. But I do believe it's basically, this is the libertarian me, get out of people's bedrooms. Basically, leave us alone. Go away, nanny state.
They're not, though. They're forcing the issue and forcing it on us and setting it up to where pastors who refuse to marry homosexual couples are literally brought up on.
Yeah,
but it's happening.
But then again, too, there can be recourse to try to
keeping out of the bedroom. That's not staying out of the bedroom. That's forcing the issue. Legally forcing the issue on Christians who don't believe in this and they think that it's wrong. Any sexual sin, not just homosexual, any sexual sin is wrong according to God's word. And that's what I follow. And so I try and vote for candidates who I've got to, with a good conscience, support people who are biblically of a biblical mindset, I guess is the best way to put it. But thank you for your honesty on that.
And it's if I can say as well too. I mean, it's one of those issues where it's different. I think it's hard to say this is our litmus test of everything we want. But I will tell you though, when I say I didn't transition, I say I converted to being a Republican. But let me give you this example. When I met President Trump, you know what? He didn't ask me about any positions. You know what he did? He just said, welcome. Welcome to the Republican Party. And I think there's something in there. I think if we wish to be gracious, we want to grow the party. I don't think everybody's going to be, even when I was a Democrat, as you saw, I didn't agree with most people. And ultimately they wanted to kick me out. And I said, I'll leave when I'm ready to leave. And I was already ready to leave, but nobody was going to kick me out. So I think just to be the room there to allow for us to grow the party. We're not going to agree on everything, but I think we allow the discussion. Let's see where it goes. But then can we coalesce around the major issue? And then everybody will pick what their major issues are. For me, honestly, for all the years that I've been in the political arena, it really has been school choice. That's been my number one issue. But I understand it when others might say, the marriage or life are the major issues. And those are things we're going to have to struggle with as a party. What do we do?
Amen. And for anybody who says, I don't trust anyone who says who was a Democrat, now they're a Republican. Really? Ronald Reagan? Don't trust him. Donald Trump, as you said, there's so many. There's a long list.
Elon Musk.
I respect people who actually realize, holy crap, I've been getting it wrong all this time. Mark Twain, one of my absolute favorites, he said it's easier to fool people than it is to convince them they have been fooled. And so many on the left have been fooled for their entire lives. They'll fight to the death to prove that they were right in being wrong. It's the oddest thing. I've never seen anything quite like it. So somebody like you who goes, you know what? That's it. I'm going to cut bait and run. I'm getting out.
You know what, too? I get it actually from both sides, because on one hand, I was called traitor, I was called a MAGA Nazi. I mean, I get vile stuff because I left the Democrat Party, or the party left me. And then on the other side, well, can we trust you? Who are you? Blah, blah. So I think it's almost as though, the way I look at it is, we have, we're in a constitutional republic. Some people call it a democracy. But I think if anything, it's important. How do we grow the party? How do we get overall the vast majority of what we want and strive for, rather than putting up the guardrails? So that's what I hope for.
Here's some hope for you in looking what's happening in Los Angeles.
Yes.
Spencer Pratt was a flaming lefty. And look at him now. Do you think he could actually win the mayor's race in LA?
I do. I've already voted for him. And you know what, for him, I think it's and it's just incredible, because this is somebody who is speaking for everybody. As you know, when you run for a mayor's seat or a council seat, it's nonpartisan, right? So you don't have the party label, but everybody knows your politics, who you are, and your whether you're Republican or Democrat, it still prevails. But I think Spencer has been really good in just saying, look, he's not running as a Republican or a Democrat. He's running as an angry person whose home and city was burned down. And I agree with him. It's been egregious what happened, the way he's been treated as well. Yep. And to a large extent in California, this is what I urge the people of California to also think about. To some extent, even though we are Republican or we might be Democrat, park the party label right now, because we're finding that close to 60% of Californians across the board are just saying we're sick and tired of what we're seeing, and we want a different government. And so one that is not necessarily even ideological, but's using common sense, like don't burn down your city or your state.
Yeah, about that. Have some water in your reservoirs.
Yeah, don't create learning centers in California. Let the kids learn to read and write and do math.
And then don't go after the journalists that are exposing those learning centers and the audacity of them, like Mia and Rob Bonta are. The freaking attorney general and an assembly person going after journalists like this. And it's past it's already passed the House. Now it's going to the Senate. It's past the Assembly. Now it's going to the Senate. This is crazy what's happening. I can't believe what I'm watching. Giving away free diapers, giving away free tablets to prisoners. We're freaking broke.
How about in LA? The mayor wants to give teeth to meth addicts.
Oh, the meth teeth. Yes.
So we need it. And remember, nothing's ever free. Somebody's paying for it. It's people of California.
Right.
But that's where we've got to unite, take it back, because the waste, the fraud, the abuse, I know we've heard it over and over. It is so real. We would not they keep saying we need more taxes. No, you've got to clear up the waste and fraud, that bullet train to nowhere. And now it's turning into a bullet bus, where they figure we can pack people onto a bus and put you onto a special lane on the freeway, which, by the way, then will take another lane out of.
That will take a lane away from us.
Exactly. And homelessness. Think about all the money that's been spent, and it's worse than ever. The poverty is worse than ever. We can't afford a home. So we can be going on with everything that we can't do. Bottom line is, it's 16 years of one party rule, and we've got to change that. And the only way we can change it is we might say, I agree on 70% with you, but not 30, or I agree with 80%, but not 20. But overall, if we can turn this around, then there's room for us to at least have, I think, a more common, a more sensible, a more safe way of life, and to raise our children, because basically our families are just packing up and leaving and saying, we're gone, we're out of here.
Can't blame them. Can't blame them. I'm only still here because this is my state, damn it.
Right.
And all the good people who think the way I do have left, and I can't. At first I was angry at them, but now I really can't blame them. I get it. but I'm too dang stubborn, Gloria. I'm just going to stick around. I'm waiting out this election. 2026 is
We
going to be
need to.
very pivotal point in my mind.
I agree, because if we don't do it now, we have a real hard chance going forward. And that's why Steve Hilton did create the golden ticket. I think he's somebody who can work across the aisle. I mean, even when I was in Sacramento, I was a Democrat, but you talk to any Republican up there, I was kind of an honorary Republican. I always worked across the aisle on a number of issues, continued that. Then you have an attorney general that will work with us and being sensible on issues, a controller who will run with us, who can actually put out the issues of, okay, here's where the waste is going and the fraud. So it shows that you need a cabinet, you need a team. We all have to be elected individually, but it's a team. And I think the brilliance of the golden ticket is the idea that you can't just select a governor. You really need the lieutenant governor there to get the gubernatorial nominations through the Senate and to confirmation.
Yes.
You know, the attorney general that can put out,
Secretary of State, Attorney General, all of it, treasurer, all of it. We can't. We threw Arnold Schwarzenegger to the wolves.
Right.
He had some great ideas, and he tried to get us involved by doing special elections, instead of just pushing through legislation and strong arming, the legislature. Arnold Schwarzenegger had some good ideas and couldn't get any of them done because unions threw millions of dollars in ad campaigns against him. And this one dude, even if he was the Terminator, couldn't get anything past that wall of corruption and crap. So I love this too, that Steve Hilton is doing this. And David Serpa is another. He was one of the first ones that I heard talking about that. We need to all get together and run together, and we need to make this a coalition kind of thing. Otherwise, it'll be the same thing again. Great, we got a Republican governor. Everything's good now. Yeah. What? As we watch everything that he tries to do or she tries to do get destroyed.
But what it means, though, is that we've got to turn out to vote, because right now, Republicans, the percentage is very good. We can't rest on our laurels. We got only a few days left. I just urge everybody, vote today. Don't wait till Election Day. There it is. It ends on June 2nd. By 8 o'clock.
I'm going to my polling place actually today after I get off with you. That's what I'm going to do.
I've motivated
but I am not going to vote by mail, and I will not even open up this envelope because I have friends who have gone to their polling places to vote, and they've been told, "Oh, you already voted." We're like, "Yeah, I'm sorry."
Well, that's why we need voter ID.
I'm not opening this. I am not opening this. I'm going to take it with me though, and I'm going to ask for another ballot, and then I will surrender this after I tear it up so it can't be used. But this is very, please explain. Can you please, I'm sorry for interrupting, but I'm so passionate about this. And I'm really happy to hear you say this, because I've been begging my fellow conservatives to actually frickin' register to vote. 40% of those who claim to be Christian only 40% are registered. Gun owners, hunters do not register to vote. They don't want the government in their life. Well, the government's in your life. All your weapons, believe me, you're on a list. So you might as well get registered to vote and do the right thing. Then I hear other people say, well, it's a whole jury duty thing. I don't really want to do that. And that's how they do it. No, not anymore. That's through the DMV, son.
Right.
So what's your next excuse for not getting involved and watching our state just absolutely all but evaporate? So please explain why the primary election in California, people don't understand the jungle primary. They don't understand that elections are won and lost in the primary, not the big vote this coming November, the primary, why it's so important. Please explain that.
Right. It's a 1-2 dance step. So you have people sign up to run. The primary is the first barrier. Like, for example, there's 60 people running for governor right now. Imagine that. There's 16 running for governor.
Yeah.
And so you have to get out of that first batch. And what it means, because of some changes that were done years ago, that the people voted for, by the way, it means that only the 2 highest voting candidates go into the general election. So you can have 2 Democrats And so we have to be very careful. If we don't get one Republican in, then basically we're shut out. And if we are shut out in the primary, so there's no Republican going into the general, then everything down ticket just falls off because there's not going to be a whole lot of motivation. We're going to find down ticket congressional members losing their seats and others because who's going to go out to vote in November feeling, well, we already lost it. We don't even have a governor leading the state. So the outcome is very important, turning up, voting, and really across all levels as well, so that we do not get shut out. And not only do we don't get shut out, but we have good people running this term. And I think we'll present ourselves in a way that can unite Republicans, a strong base, independents who are sick and tired of this. And I will tell you, many Democrats as well, who are just sick and tired of what the party has been and done. Maybe they're not ready to change the label yet, but I tell you, I've met with many in Los Angeles, the home of Hollywood, production, jobs. It's not just about rich people and movie stars. These are the people that cater, the truck drivers, others. It's a major economy that funds the state of California. And all of this is shutting down because the jobs are going to, to Tennessee or to New Mexico or other places around the world. And so we're losing that economic base. So we've got to make sure we get people here. And so a lot of the Democrats as well are saying, we want to vote for lower taxes. We want to vote for jobs. We want to get rid of government in our homes. And it's important to get out and vote. So we really urge you, if you don't show up to vote, then to some extent you can't complain. But we're losing the future for our kids. That's what's happening. We are losing the future for our kids.
You are so right. Thank you so much, Gloria Romero. I really appreciate you reaching out, and thank you to your campaign manager for contacting me and setting this all up for today. I saw you at the California Republican Convention down in San Diego, walking around. I wanted to go up to you, and then it just never happened. But I'm so glad to finally get to meet you now, and thank you for running. I respect that. I admire anyone who actually puts it all on the line to say, I want to do something. I'm seeing too much bad stuff going on. I got to do something. And that's what you're doing. So well, thank you very much.
Thank you. And now that I'm a Republican, I want to do my share. I want to help build this party. And I'm so happy to be a part of it and to do what I can to reach out to others and say, come and join us, walk away. The walk away movement is real. We walk away and we build. And I'm just so honored to be part of the party. Like I said, it's so much happier here. So thank you so much for inviting me. And I'll look forward to seeing you again soon. Let's hope for next Tuesday.
It is happier, isn't it? It is a happier party and a happier way to be. Those on the left just seem to wallow in misery. It's the strangest thing. Yep. All right, my friend. Talk to you soon. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you.
By the way, where do we find you? You got a website? How do we find you?
Website, gloriajromero.com. gloriajromero.com. If you can donate something, please do. It's expensive to run in a big state. And then on Twitter, X, Facebook, Instagram, we have the channels there. Just look for my name, Gloria J. Romero.
All right, my friend. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
Absolutely. All right. Talk to you later. That was fun. Yeah, I obviously agree with her or disagree with her on a couple of things, but ultimately, who can get the job done and who can win? And thank you very much for supporting me through buying some merchandise at my website. Let's talk about politics and religion right there. You can get this big old 15-ounce mug. Look at that. All my fingers fit in that handle right there. And I got big hands, and I like big mugs. I cannot lie. Them other brothers can't deny. So get yourself a mug or a shirt or a hat, and you'll be helping the show stay on the air that way at CharLeeSimons.com. CharLeeSimons, CharLeeSimons.com. May God bless you and keep you. May God bless America. But most importantly, America bless God.